You guys want to hear how back Deshaun Watson is? I mean, he is ready to go. He is roaring to go for the season. So,
back or belly? I mean, what do you mean? How back or how belly is Deshaun?
Yeah.
Wow. What do you mean?
Batter up.
Wow. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
some would say he's better off being belly ready. Belly.
Yeah. If you read the. If you read the report, it's a weird place to do yoga.
Dang. Dang.
What stretch is that?
They used to call it the Mad Cat.
Deshaun, your ankle's not a walkie-talkie.
Oh, no. Oh, no. All right.
But nonetheless, he was at Brown's training camp over the weekend, and he was asked by the media just about what he needs to do to prepare for this upcoming season and what his expectations are for himself as they get ready for 2024.
Honestly, it's really just, blocking out all the bull. Honestly, outside, it was tough coming in 2 years, different environment, different team, different all that. So, you come in and, your character's been, mentioned this way, and then, it kind of flip on you, and biggest thing you're trying to get people to like you or improve. But now it's like, at the end of the day, it's 2 years in, and if you don't, like me or you have your own opinions, then forget it. It is what it is. So I think blocking out all the noise and focusing on me and focusing on what I need to do to be the best Deshaun Watson I can be for myself, my family, and my teammates. Just being the best Deshaun Watson can be for this team so we can get that ultimate goal and maximizing my potential and my talent, and that's my motivation. I don't have anything else that is going to motivate me.
None of it's proving people wrong, like you rank quarterbacks. And
I get too what other people say, to be honest.
Damn, take that, VAR.
I mean, clearly, if he cared, he wouldn't have did the stuff that had people saying what they said. I mean, I don't see why he's saying it now. You never cared. You never really cared. But I mean, there is some sensibility in what he said. I mean, he has been there for 2 years now. I would say, I'll throw this one to you, Q, but I would say after watching him play, I'm curious. He gets the surgery, even though his injury pattern was very confusing to me last season. I didn't know if, I guess his shoulder ended up being concussed because it looked like he was concussed, but maybe it was his shoulder, or I don't really know what the injuries were until he gets the surgery and he was shut down. But my biggest question and my look into it is, does he still want to play? I think he just has to prove he still wants to play. Like, forget all the off-the-field stuff. Like, we can joke, poke fun at that. But what I saw last season was, in my estimation, he's a very kind of nonchalant guy in the way he is anyway, personality-wise, at least the way it comes across when he speaks in interviews. So maybe the feeling of him seeming a little distant from the games and from the team, and very nonchalant about whether he played or didn't play. That was my biggest question in terms of looking at how things went with him last season and going into this season. But, I'll leave that to you. Like, what do you think is the biggest key for, the biggest thing to look for with Deshaun Watson this season?
Well, to answer that question, I would say it really comes down to how he's picking up the offense. According to Warren Sharp, that's Sharp Football on X, but no one had a higher rate of incompletions due to inaccurate passes in the NFL. It was Deshaun Watson by large margin. Almost half of his incompletions were due to inaccurate passes on his end of things. 44%. That's 3-4 percentage points higher than Tyrod Taylor. But as you go down the line, you start looking at some of the quarterbacks who excelled, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, who was at under 25%, or Jared Goff, who's at 26%, Dak Prescott, 27%, Josh Allen, 27%. He was by far and away the most inaccurate passer of any in the NFL last year. So his ability to continue to develop chemistry and get down this offense and get on the same page with Kevin Stefanski, I have said since day one, since he got there, and to your point about all the off-the-field stuff, like, no one's moved on from it, by the way. Like, I think he's hoping, and I know his representation's hoping, that they can get past everything that happened in the past, but that's always going to be with them. Like, when you had that many allegations, you had that many things that were going off the field that were that weird and crazy, and then you didn't play and somehow got that contract, like, it will always stick with you because it is an anomaly. Like, that just doesn't happen. So he'll never get past. I don't care if he wins a Super Bowl. There will always be that asterisk next to his name and how he got there. So that's just part of the deal. And by the way, those are decisions he made. He put himself in that situation. But that being said, I don't know that he's a great fit for Kevin Stefanski's system, to be quite honest. I've said this for a while now. This is one of the most talented rosters. It's a talented offense. I don't know that you could ask for much more as a quarterback, but it's just whether or not Kevin Stefanski's system can jive with what Deshaun Watson would like to do on offense, and vice versa. Like, can those two work together and it be the offense that ultimately will help lead them to a division title, the playoffs, Super Bowl, all that? Like, that's really what it comes down to. And just from Stefanski's system and coming from that kind of Kubiak tree and everything else, I don't know that meshes as well with what maybe Watson wants to do. To me, so much of that system is still predicated on some of the outside zone running schemes and the boots and things off of that. And when you've got an offensive line and a running back like they have in Cleveland, you would think that still needs to be a staple of the offense. But I think if you go back to Deshaun Watson's best years in days playing in Houston, it's mostly from shotgun and allowing him to get back and survey the field. And if nothing's there, take off and run and get what he can. And that's not as much of the offense when you're playing under center. It's harder as a quarterback to do that unless you get outside contain, outside the pocket, and you're running a ton of boots. So we'll see what 2024 looks like. I've continually said this contract locks him in and the team in to a long-term relationship. I don't feel like there's any sense of urgency whatsoever on either side because they literally cannot move on from him for 3 more seasons. Given how much guaranteed money they've got tied up into him.
Can I ask you a question? With what you're saying, is that more of an indictment on the play callers or on Stefanski? On Ken Dorsey's the OC, right?
He's the OC now. Yeah.
I mean, if you're paying him all that money, should you be able to say he doesn't fit Stefanski's offensive scheme? That would be my biggest question to listening to what you said. Because if I got to pay this dude all the money that they guaranteed him, hey, Deshaun, what works for you? Like, what? Right. I want to give you the most ample of opportunities to have the success that you're going to have because you are by far and away the biggest investment that we made. Is that the wrong approach, or should he have to adjust to what they're calling?
Well, no, I think the new age of the NFL now is, especially to your point about the contract, I mean, the team should be adapting to him. And I think they've done that with the personnel that's on this roster. And look, maybe behind the scenes they're doing it more than I'm understanding. I'm only looking from the outside, looking in on all of it. So it's hard to get a feel for it. But, Ken Dorsey's there now as the OC. Alex Van Pelt, who was there, is no longer there. I believe he's in New England now. So, how much of a change will there be? I don't know. Kevin Stefanski's the head coach. He's an offensive mind. He got the job because of his offensive play calling prowess. And it now comes down to, is he willing to, give up the reins to Ken Dorsey? How fast can Ken Dorsey get up to speed on this offensive system and implement something that can play to the strengths of Deshaun Watson and what they want to do with the personnel they have? So those are all big questions. I mean, like I said, I think this season is, to me, one where on paper I'd put their roster up against anyone in the AFC. Anyone. I think they're that good of a roster. It just comes down to his level of play, because if you go back to last year, and despite the quarterback play, despite the injury to Nick Chubb, this team was still able to win a lot of football games with Jim Schwartz as their offensive coordinator, Myles Garrett and the rest of that defense who are studs, and then Joe Flacco coming in for, 5 games, and he played well enough in that span to be able to win comeback player of the year. I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it. I mean, I know we talked earlier about Tua, but Tua very easily could have made a case after missing, 4 games, I think the year prior, to being the comeback player of the year with the way he played last year, leading the league in passing and everything else. So this is a Browns team to me that's in a great position for Deshaun Watson to make improvements and come in and be a team that competes not only for the division but for the AFC Championship, in my mind.
If they come up short, who does that fall on? I mean, it's obvious that falls on Stefanski, but I mean, how much of that will play? What can you do if Deshaun Watson doesn't play well this year?
Nothing. I'm telling you, you're not able to move on from him. You just contractually, you can't do it. You cannot do it.
That is so crazy.
When you hear the way that he,
I mean, again, I'll give you the numbers if you want. Again,
well, I mean, hold on. If we're going to give out numbers on the contract, we got to do this the right way. I think this has to happen the right way. I mean, if we're going to do contract numbers here on this show, we've got to do it the right way. Please.
Yeah, do it.
Would somebody please do it the right way?
Pull him up,
right now. Set up, and we've got just a live studio band. They're firing on all cylinders this morning. There's the Olympics going on. There's everything else going on. We're trying to figure out why Tua looks different, but none of that matters because right now it's this.
And now for more on this, 2 pros and a cup of Joe, NFL contract analyst, Brady T. Quinn.
All right.
So we're not going to move on from Deshaun Watson now. He's got a $200 million dead cap hit. Okay, we know that.
Say that again.
Even after this year.
Say that again.
$200 million dead cap.
That'll get you dumped. God damn.
So they're not moving on from him after this year. After this year, in 2025, it'd be $137 million dead cap hit.
Dang!
$137 million dead cap hit. Damn. And then after 2026, it lessens to what? $73 million in dead cap hit.
You know how much? You know how much baby oil you can buy with that?
That's a lot of baby oil. Hey, in fact, I ain't gonna go there.
LaVar, towel off.
I ain't gonna go there, but I'm just saying, we ain't heard him get in no trouble lately. That might have flew over a few people's heads. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave that where it lay.
So basically, he's got him by the balls.
Yeah, I keep telling you, they're not moving on from him. There's no way any organization would move on from him. They're with him for the next few years. Browns fans are with him for the next few years. So there's not a sense of urgency to put pressure on him in that sense. So they can kind of take their time with this. So, look, you asked the question, VAR, depending on how things end, what does that mean? What it mean to me, it depends on how things end. I mean, Stefanski just won Coach of the Year. Do you think if this year doesn't go well, he's going to get fired? I think I would have a hard time believing that.
Right, and that's why I asked. You know what I mean? If they come up short, if it doesn't go, because you can obviously look at if it works out. It's inconsequential. But if it doesn't work out, you always got to ask the question, if it doesn't work out, and they've been looking for it to work out in Cleveland, when you make that type of investment, you've said that this is the missing piece to what we have. That's what that says to me. Now, if that's what the missing piece was, and Deshaun Watson, in fact, is available and plays, and this team doesn't achieve at the level, say they're like a Dallas Cowboys team and how their season ends, is it just, hey, moving on to the next season? I mean, there actually have been times where not having a successful campaign in the playoffs or you know what, or so winning in the Super Bowl, whatever it may be, where it's like, you know what, we'll run it back next year. That has happened. I'm just curious if they were to underperform, knowing what they've invested in this quarterback, knowing that you have a coach that is coaching as well as Stefanski is coaching. How do you address it? How do you address it?
Do you guys Mary Kay Cabot is pretty connected there, right, Brady, in Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when she comes out on a podcast, and we talked about it at the time, and says if he struggles this year, they will not hesitate to put Jameis Winston in. If she's hearing that, Deshaun Watson's got to be feeling that, right? Like, he's got to be feeling some sense of, you know, even though I am getting paid, like, there's a chance that if I do struggle, we're not waiting around, because if this roster is as good as you say it is, and they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender, I mean, that's why we threw out the number. Like, number of games Jameis Winston starts this year, over under 3.5. I'll take the over. Whether it's injury or poor play, based on what we've seen, I think Jameis Winston's going to get in there. So they're going to pay him regardless.
The Browns have the best quarterback room in the NFL. If you look at their depth, like I think a ton of Jameis. I think he should be starting in this league. I'll continue to keep saying it. If I was Las Vegas, I would make a trade for Jameis Winston right now. That's what I'd do in order to give yourself a shot this season. But even beyond him, look at Tyler Huntley. When Tyler Huntley's gotten a chance, has gone in, he's played well. I mean, they are aligned, I think, better than any team behind their starting quarterback in Deshaun Watson to be able to survive not only an injury to Jameis Winston, but even if Tyler Huntley has to go and play. Like, Huntley's gone in and has played well in some big spots back during his time in Baltimore. So I kind of love what they've done, but I keep going back to their roster. Like, you go look at this roster. They've got talent. They've got depth. They are built to win. And even despite any injuries to the quarterback, and I think we saw until Flacco came in and kind of saved the day, we saw some issues at quarterback. That's not the case anymore now with this roster. So, look, to your point about Jameis Winston, that might have more to do with the style of play from Deshaun Watson, and if he takes off and gets hurt, running outside the pocket more than anything else. But I know Mary Kay. She's dialed in. I just have a hard time believing they're going to do that with how much they're paying Deshaun Watson and how much they're still on the hook for him, because there's really nothing they can do to get out from underneath it outside of a trade. But again, you're looking at the potential of Dak Prescott being a free agent and whoever else you want to throw into the conversation who's a veteran guy or a guy that might be under contract with a year or two left that could be traded too, not to mention a quarterback class coming out in the draft. And I'll challenge you by saying this. How many teams are going to be in need of a quarterback next year? Based on this past draft, this past year, based on what we know about some of the other veterans who've gotten inked up, whether it's Matt Stafford or Jared Goff or now Tua and now who's that? The name that's escaping me. That just signed.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence as well,
Jordan
but
Love.
he wasn't going to be up anyway.
Jordan Love, Tua.
Jordan Love. Like, all these guys now are under long-term deals. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, like, all these guys. So, like, who's really in need of a quarterback? Is it maybe Pittsburgh if things don't go well between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields?
That would be horrible to think that they would need a quarterback after 1 year with what they just did.
Right.
But go ahead.
Talk about terrible towels.
That's what I'm saying. What team would you think of? Is it the Giants if Daniel Jones doesn't do well? But
Yes.
they would be in a position probably to draft one.
That's
so
correct. But
you guys
are saying there's not a big market for quarterbacks this draft, correct?
Yeah, but there'll be at least three guys. When I look at it, like Carson Beck, I think will be the first quarterback ends up being taken out of Georgia. I think Shador Sanders will be up there. I think Connor Wigman, the quarterback at Texas A&M. Who knows how Riley Leonard does this season? How high he can jump at Notre Dame? There's a number of guys who could end up falling in this conversation. But the greater point is this: Dak's going to be the most sought after free agent, and the one that's going to receive top dollar. But if you're a team that's looking for a quarterback, if Cleveland were going to try to move on from Deshaun, it's because he's not playing well.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the value going to be then?
Would you say I would say the Raiders, possibly the Seahawks, depending on what they got going on, possibly the Saints, and would that be it? Possibly
they still got
Tampa
Derek
Bay.
Carr, who played all right. I mean,
Right.
they
I'm just saying.
Baker.
I'm saying possibly. Possibly.
Right.
Possibly the Rams. Right. Possibly. Depending on what Stafford wants to do. Possibly.
No.
So,
right, which
anyway.
they just redid his contract.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying the possibilities of it. I don't. Possibly.
Yeah.